I'll officially introduce. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight at RJ Julia. My name is Kristen. I'm going to be your moderator for this evening. We are here tonight, of course, to celebrate Lev Rosen and his newest book, The Bell and the Fog. Lev has so many books out that I cannot name them all for you right now, but I will do the ones that came out this year, of which there are 3.
One is next month.
One is next month. So in May, Lion's Legacy, which is a young adult adventure queer novel, came out, which you can purchase right there. It's just behind us on the now, of course, we have The Bell and the Fog, which is the sequel to Lavender House.
We're not saying sequel, we're saying follow-up, so that people understand it works as a standalone.
It works as a standalone, I've been told. And as a follow-up to the smash sensation Lavender House, which was a Lambda and Anthony Award finalist. It's a really kick-ass read. If you haven't read it yet, you absolutely should. And tonight, of course, we're discussing the next work in that ongoing series. Even though this is a standalone work, I have the
goal is for you to be able to drop in at any point, and Troy can probably get more into the information on that. But yeah. I remember when my editor Kristen was like, well, it has to work as a standalone so that people new to the series can read it. I was like, who would do that? I was genuinely baffled that people enter in the middle of series. And I still am, but I dog-ear pages, so I can't judge.
That's horrifying. We'll try to. So this is the first follow-up that you have done in one of your books. You published a lot of them, but they're usually standalone. What has, other than the horror of discovering that people just drop in on
so weird
on things without having read the first one, what other considerations have you had to make in this second work?
Well, I think what's important is making sure that the scope widens at least slightly. My editor is extremely smart about this, and the way she says it is you have to add a new audience, which doesn't necessarily mean like we're expecting to really bring in the World War II mystery crowd here. But it means that there is a new enough area of the book to explore. And in this case, there's 2, because Lavender House was so limited. It was this like, not locked room, but manor house sort of mystery. And Bell and the Fog, we get out into San Francisco, and we see San Francisco, and we also get Andy's past, which would have been, World War II Navy stuff. So those are the 2 new audiences, so to speak.
So there are some characters who have remained.
Yep.
Everybody at Lavender House is okay, by the way. So we get little updates about your, if you have favorites from the first one, you'll get a little peek at what's going on there. But as you said, we're sort of off into a new world. So what can you tell us about this second book and what's going on for Andy?
Yeah, I mean, it starts off a couple months after Lavender House ends, and Andy has set up as the the only gay private investigator in San Francisco, over the Ruby, which is a gay club. So he literally has it's a hallway above the Ruby, and it's dressing rooms filled with male and female impersonators, and then his tiny little studio apartment and his office across the hall from each other. So his life is a little wild in that for him to get clients, they have to go through the drag queens and go to his office. And it's definitely not what he saw his life being, but he is sort of determined to try to do something. And he has a deal with Elsie, who owns the Ruby and was the main character in Lavender House, and it's main character here as well, where he doesn't have to pay rent, but he gives her a percentage of his earnings, except that he hasn't been getting many clients because everyone in the queer community knows he was a cop, and they don't really trust him. So he gets occasional clients. He gets, I think he says, he gets men who are sad because they are afraid that their boyfriends are cheating on him, and he gets men who are angry because they're convinced their boyfriends are cheating on them. And it's very seedy work, which he sort of didn't really want to do. Instead, what he's really hoping to do is actually help people in some way and sort of earn back the trust of the community, as well as earn his keep, because he knows Elsie is losing money which is confirmed pretty early on. And he is, he's figuring all that out. And then into his office walks an old flame from his time in the Navy, who he would prefer not to see ever again, but who has a paying case for him that could actually help someone. So he takes it, and that leads him down a couple paths. One is into sort of the various queer bars of San Francisco, and they're all fictional, but they're all based, except for the Ruby, they're all based on real queer bars of San Francisco, historical ones. And then also into his own past and sort of re-examining that relationship and the way it fell apart and the paranoia of being queer in the Navy towards the end of World War II, as well as the freedom of being queer in the Navy towards the beginning of World War II, which is sort of interesting contrast. But yeah, I think beyond that we get into spoiler territory.
I know, yeah, we won't go further than that. But what I will jump off of is two things that you were just talking about, which is first the historical queer bars that some of the places that we go to are based on, and then sort of what it's like to be gay during, before, and after World War II. You know, I'm going to ask you about your research process. So take me through it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I talked about this during Lavender House too. The key text, my research Bible, is Wide Open Town by Nana Miller Boyd, which is the history of San Francisco, gay San Francisco, pre-Stonewall, and she goes into a lot of the bars. And using that, I can jump off and do slightly more focused research here and there, but that's really where all the bar research comes from. And then the World War II stuff research, that mostly comes from Alan Berube, is how I've been told his last name is pronounced. Alan Berube's Coming Out Under Fire, which is the history of gay people during World War II, the gay armed services during World War II. And there is a documentary, but I will say the documentary was made in the 90s, and it was more about sort of trying to stop Don't Ask, Don't Tell before it went into effect. So it has a more specific through line and like point and almost propaganda like sort of focus. Whereas the book is all over the place in it. It's like, here's the positive, here's the negative, here's this, here's that. And it's wild. It is wild. World War II was very gay. Very, very gay. It's because all these people who were like the only gay person in their small town, and like didn't even know if other people like them really existed, the draft funneled all these people into urban areas, and all of a sudden there were like 50 of the only gay guy in their small town all together in a city that had gay bars, and like, oh,
looking great in uniform.
Yeah, like all of a sudden these communities were formed essentially by the war.
Now, when you were talking about Lavender House last year, one of the things you were saying was there's a character who sort of wears items of both clothing and both genders traditional clothing, and the sort of rule that you found in this got sort of tampered down to like one teeny tiny line that was like, if I wear at least 3 items that are of
which is a fictional thing, but like we're all told it's true.
We're all told it's true, and that was something that circulated around from the research that you did. Any particularly interesting nuggets from that, first of all, and then second of all, what was something that got left on the cutting room floor in this book that you kind of wish had stayed? Let's give it its moment.
Well, the thing that really like weirded me out the most, and I couldn't use in the book because, well, no, I guess it did sort of get used in the book, but in the state of California, women were not allowed to tend bar until the 70s, which like continues to like weird me out. And the reasoning behind it was that women were going to drug men and take advantage of them.
Oh, we're known for that.
Yeah, just wild, just wild. The 70s, took till the 70s, and they were allowed to be cocktail waitresses. They were allowed to bring the drinks to the table.
I can root for you just as easily.
I know.
In transit.
So the logic behind it is very confusing. I guess if you're doing this, you can't do this or that. But you're supposed to hold them. Yeah. So that one, like, still, I was what? When I was researching, because there's a lesbian bar in the book, and so technically she has to employ a man, and that was something I read about some of the lesbian bars in the 50s. They had to employ men because the men had to be listed as the bartenders. And like, yes, sometimes the women would go behind the bar and tend the drink, but that was technically illegal, and like stuff like that is what, if they find a woman mixing a drink when the police raid, there's trouble. So yeah.
Wow, fascinating. So Andy in this book is kind of on an upward trajectory, we could say. I mean, from
I mean,
in some ways better, some ways worse. I feel like in the first one, he's sort of struggling with being blackballed by the police community, which has kind of been like his safety for so long. It's where he's kind of been able to, fold into society in like an acceptable way. And now in the second book, he's kind of finally out, but he's sort of being blackballed by the gay community, and it's in their own kind of way, because you said he's not really getting many cases. People don't really trust him yet, so on and so forth. And yet, he's struggling, but
he's it's the thing about Lavender House is that by the end of it, he is given an opportunity to live a real life, which is something he hadn't really done before then. And we sort of see how he lived a real life during the war too, but it is also like a life during a war, like while you're a soldier and things could change at any moment and your life is always on the line. So that's very different than a normal life, let's say. And he never had one of those because he sort of had these two half-lives. He had his police work life, and he had his go to the bars and pick up men for anonymous sex life. And those were not whole in any way. And so now he has a whole life, but he really is sort of starting at the bottom, and he has to sort of figure out what that looks like and what he wants a whole life to be and how to assemble that, like how to figure out how to make that happen. Like, how does he make friends? He's not 100% sure. Early on, the love interest, the guy he kissed in the first book is Gene, who becomes who's a main character in The Bell and the Fog, is still working at the Ruby, and he's still kind of crushing on him, but it's been a couple months and he hasn't asked him out. And like first few pages, so this isn't a spoiler, Elsie is like, just ask him out, and then he's like, how do I do that? Like, genuinely, unironically, he doesn't understand because he's still trying to figure out what having a life is. And so that expansion is interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Particularly, it's heartwarming, right? And like a book that's kind of like gritty and murdery and noir, like there is this kind of heartwarming component of Andy just kind of like slowly but surely like widening like his view on what he thinks his life could be, and what like parts it might hold. I'm also right now reading House in the Cerulean Sea, which sort of a similar trajectory where he's like, I can be myself.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? And sort of the like joy of watching somebody who didn't feel like they could do that for so long kind of slowly come into their own is like really sweet. I don't want to undersell the murder, of which there is.
It's the happiest, cuddliest book in the world.
Book in the world. You ever just find like a body outside in the back of an alley and you just think to yourself, man, that's wholesome.
I mean, I'll say, more people die in this one than in Lavender House.
Yeah, assuredly. I was gonna give a number, but I didn't want to give a spoiler, but like it is a non-zero number.
Yeah. And it's more than one this time.
Also more than one. Yeah. So you, on a slightly different note, recently went to Japan.
Yeah.
A, how's that? And B, how does traveling impact your writing process?
Oh, that's an interesting question. It was great except for the weather.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no, it was like 90 degrees every day except the day the hurricane hit. So the weather was not my favorite. It went up to 100 the day we walked to the top of a very tall tower. But otherwise it's great. And I don't know how much it affects my writing process. I mean, I definitely come up with ideas, if you're not working and you're on vacation and you just like, the goal is essentially to go around and experience art and culture and experience, and get inspired. Yeah, obviously ideas are gonna come out of that. I don't know how many ideas I had on this last trip are gonna like come to any kind of fruition. But certainly the act of traveling and experiencing new things is inherently inspiring, and it jogs the brain in new directions. But I don't think I can draw any specific lines to like, oh, well, since I've been to Japan, Andy is gonna start killing people with a katana.
That's probably narratively correct.
Yeah, that'd be a little weird. I mean, I could get there, but give me
We're
time.
very tense when you get there. The turns, Andy, but that'd be like a sort of Game of Thrones, shift in character though. You're like, oh, it's all going so well. He seems so stable, and then the katana in the last season.
He finds it and it speaks to him. Andy's full mental break.
That's fine. We'll send a little note to Kristen to just remember.
Troy's here. You can tell Troy.
Try. If you ever see a katana, show up.
Jot it down. I'm just
Jot it down. Remember, we talked about this, Lev.
No katana left.
No katana.
No demonic katana.
I mean, if Lion's Legacy were to see a second one, I think an evil katana.
Yes, there's gonna be a second one.
Is there going to be an evil katana?
The same katana. It's funny. I just wrote. There was a katana in the first one at the very beginning. You remember?
Yep.
Yes, and that like prologue section. There is a prologue section from like essentially the same period. For this second one, which I just wrote. For the edits. So maybe it won't be there by the end, but right now there's one there. So there's a mention of a katana.
Non-zero chance of a haunted katana
Yeah.
is what I'm hearing.
There's a non-zero chance of a mention of a magical katana in King's Legacy is the title to the sequel. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. And do we know when that is?
Spring 25. There was a delay to publish it. There was some it should have been 24.
You're just too fast for them.
Essentially, yes.
Well, I mean, let's talk about it, right? Lion's Legacy was first.
Yep.
Now we have Bell in the Fog, and then next month is Emmett. Would you
Yes,
like to
less than a month away.
talk about that baby for us?
Emmett is a young adult, essentially a young adult, queer contemporary take on Jane Austen's Emma, hence Emmett, Emma. And yeah, it's out November 7th. Yes, 7th. Whatever that Tuesday is. Yeah, 7th. Okay, good. Classic publishing line, whatever that Tuesday is. So yeah, and it is the reason I wrote it and the joy of writing it was knowing that I was writing this, the famous quote about Jane Austen writing Emma, which is like, I'm gonna write a character no one likes except me. And that's exactly what I did. He's the worst. I love him so much. He's terrible. But starred reviews from Kirkus and Publishers Weekly, so I guess other people like him.
Or love to hate him, hate to love him.
It's true. I think that's part of the thrill.
You're just like, oh, you just.
Oh my God, he's so the worst. He's the worst. I'm happy to sell him that way. He's the worst.
Give me a preview. What's giving me a little bit of his worstness?
I believe his opening line is something like, "I know I'm blessed."
Oh,
Yeah. Don't you hate him already?
I hate him so much. Oh, I need to circle it back around to something pure. Okay, what can we talk about? Oh wait, I know. How's Lulu?
Lulu's good.
Lulu's good. How has she been taking to all of your,
Oh, I haven't seen Lulu.
I was
in
gonna
2
say
days.
you're traveling.
Yeah.
And you just.
Oh, my husband's still there, but
Okay, Chris is
yeah.
home. Chris
My
and
understanding
Lulu.
is she slept on my side of the bed.
Well, yeah.
So in that sense, she's very happy I'm gone. Yeah.
When it comes to how many edits did this book go through?
I think we did 3.
3? That sounds right. Yeah.
3, yeah.
And of course, before it gets to Troy and Kristen, there's another handful of rounds. So less than 10, more than 5.
Okay.
Yeah. It's also hard to say like what's around.
A round of it, yeah. 'Cause
Yeah.
There's sort of little bits that you're sort of.
Everything's very fluid.
They're in the writing process. What was the, I guess, best change if you can do this without revealing too much or giving spoilers? What do you think the best change was they made in the book, and maybe what was like one of the more challenging ones?
Well, the challenging one was making it a standalone. Still don't understand. Kristen had very good advice and I followed it, and apparently it works because she okayed it. But I am still 100, like we're gonna go into the third one, it's gonna be the same problem. It's gonna be exact like you've read the third one, so it's the same problem. but like I still have no idea what the hell we're doing in terms of making it a standalone, especially as like they grow and now there's more history to do. And the third one also, spoilers, opens with him returning to Lavender House. Not for the whole novel, to be clear.
But like,
But
are we gonna
he-
see people again?
Yes, we're gonna see everyone again. We're gonna see the family, unless they make me take that out. Yeah,
Wouldn't dare.
we'll find out. Maybe Chris didn't show up tonight for a reason, but so yeah, I was totally just like, I don't know how to reintroduce these. Like, imagine someone just starting this one. How does that work? Like, I was very. So I don't know, and I assume Troy and Kristen will talk me through that again, because that is very difficult for me to wrap my mind around, and so it's very difficult for me to figure out how to do it properly. The best change. Ooh, best change. It's a tough one. There were a lot of, so okay, this is a good one that you'll like because it's about Jean. Jean isn't the only love interest in this book. I will say that. Well, we know that the lover from his time in the past shows up at the very beginning. I said that already. So obviously there's going to be some residual attraction, push-pull there. And one of the notes was about the way I sort of regarded those two, the way Andy felt about the push-pull of both of the men, about James and Jean. And it was essentially that James felt like sexier and Jean felt cuter, and like more of a write-off. So being able to like see that and make Jean more of a substantial, like emotional love interest, I think was a very good note and a good change. Because yeah, making him special, otherwise it didn't feel, it felt like he was almost too, that relationship was almost too flimsy next to James. And like the difference is like, you know, nostalgia versus newness. And like there's, and so that's a lot of this book is about nostalgia and like how you remember the past and how you don't remember the past and what your brain does to it and the fog of the past. But yeah, oh my god, the title. But so that the strength, the sort of the comparing the way the two relationships were presented and making them more equal in energy was, I think, the best change.
Yeah, because there was some nice tension in terms of Andy trying to figure out how he felt about Jean, not wanting to just sort of fall into it because he felt just comfortable and like, oh, it'll just be so easy, but I don't want to.
And also just sort of the assumption, like he was like, I don't know if Jean likes me, like in that sort of like, you know, even though, you know, Elsie is like, he likes you, and he's like, but why though? Oh, he could like me. Oh god. Andy, but so being able to like make sure that was, and that also sets up a lot of like the third book where I was sort of like, all right, this is their moment to be like a couple finally. So what does that look like? And I think that being able to strengthen the second book led to that.
I don't know how is it gonna be a standalone? There's just so many threads that you gotta.
I don't know.
You're like, oh, Jeff, flee all over.
Yeah. Someone's gonna tell me though, so it'll be fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, thank goodness you have Troy and Kristen to.
Troy's gonna tell me how to make it a
to take you to
standalone.
those dark,
I
dark
have
woods.
no idea.
Like suddenly we're a couple. Well, you can do, you do a little narrative recap in the first couple pages and get everybody up to speed.
Yeah, those info dumps. I don't know how to do those elegantly though, so we'll see. We'll see.
Now, for sartorial shift.
Yeah.
As always, you have some very specific.
Yeah, my mom made me this one. This one's new. I just got it. It's the Bell.
Rosen.
Yeah, which is the ship that Andy sails on, the Bell, hence the title. Also, and my mom made me. It's a ship and it says Bell. So I got the Bell, and then this is a
Precious. Well done.
Beautiful.
and this is a World War II sweetheart brooch, which is what women whose boyfriends went away for war would wear if they weren't engaged yet, this was like their way of being like, I'm spoken for. I have a man away in the war. And they would wear their sweetheart in the little heart. I don't have anyone in there. But because it's sort of about World War II and like romances, this felt very appropriate as well.
Oh, that's a lovely find. Where did you find it?
Etsy or something. Yeah.
That's it. I mean, I wasn't picturing some like lower Manhattan antique.
Oh God, no, I like
You're an author, make it up.
just a strange old shop I've never seen before. Though I've walked past that corner many a time.
Thank you.
An old woman called out to me.
Tapping at the window.
I try to change the pin out and make it thematic for each book. So I'm trying to look. Yeah, I went looking for stuff essentially. I have no idea what the third one is going to be. I did look for like sort of press pins for the San Francisco Examiner, like little sort of like they used to have sort of little tiny circles that just said San Francisco Examiner, and that's sort of what the press passes would sometimes hang from, but I could not find any for like less than $400.
Oh.
So yeah, no, I'm not spending more than $20 on it. But I'll find something. I'll figure something out.
Now, on the spirit of getting into the mood of these books, what are your noir recommendations?
Ooh. In film or in okay, so
Like film, if there's other books, like I'm assuming there's a soundtrack for this, which you should sort of totally
oh
plug
yeah, I
in.
have to put that online.
I'm saying.
Oh, I haven't done that yet. Thank you.
Mhm.
Send me an email because I'm gonna forget again. But
Sure.
yeah, no, there is a playlist that I have to put online next to the playlist for Lavender House of all the mentioned songs and book. So my number one noir recommendation, film wise, is always Big Sleep. It's like my favorite. And then I was just talking about Laura the other day. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about Laura. I want to rewatch Laura. Laura is very good. And Laura is more of a romantic noir. Although Big Sleep is romantic too in its way. But Laura is great. You should watch Laura. Great music too.
Well, I suppose I should stop hogging you all to myself and open it up to our lovely audience in case anybody has some questions.
I'll ask you a question, I'll bug you. So obviously we're working on the third installment right now, and we cannot give any big details about it yet.
I'm gonna tell everyone right now.
We don't even have the title announced yet. I just double checked. I'm not. So what is it like? You write so many books at one time. What is it like returning to the headspace of?
I watch
right
a
now?
movie. I do like get back into it by watching an old noir movie.
That makes sense.
And it's always sort of a pleasure to get back to, even though that's dark and sad to say. It's like, yes, I love going back to the bad place. But yeah, so it's I had finished. What did I finish? I guess I finished the King's Legacy before I went back to the third one. Yeah. You wouldn't know my calendar, but yeah,
I
that's
don't know your calendar.
oh God, I'm so sorry. So yeah, I would have finished the young adult adventure stuff before going back to write the third one. And obviously a shift, going from Indiana Jones, teen adventurer to adult detective in the 50s. But yeah, I don't know, it's really easy to get back to for some reason. It's always, I mean, I don't know, we'll see. Maybe your edits are like, this feels like a different book club, but it is easy to get back to just because I understand the world and I love that world and like I can slip back into it. It's funny because I don't remember my books that well, but I remember the voice of them pretty well, I think. I'm trying to think, could I write the sequel to All Men of Genius, my first book, over a decade ago right now? Without, like, what would I need to do? No, I could do it. I'd watch some wild adaptations and like I'd have to figure out what Shakespeare to base it on, but I could do it. Yeah.
Maybe that's the key to making it standalone. You just forget everything. that you wrote in. I just remember the feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is like it's about the vibe and like the characters I have notes on, so I know everything. And certainly, I'm lucky enough that I have sort of vague outlines of every, the book 3, I had an outline to work off. I have an outline for book 4, and I have sort of paragraph things for, God's willing to give me more books. So I have like, what those would look like and the major conflicts and what we'd be focusing on and aspects of the past. And like just knowing all that stuff too, I get to hint at it in these books, which is fun. Like last night, someone was asking me about future books at an event in DC. And I was talking about the third one and the fourth one. And I was like, oh yeah, and the fourth one, we're going to meet his mom. And he was like, oh, that's so interesting because I noticed the way you mentioned how he talks about his mom in this one. And I was like, yes, because I know we're headed there. Like, I know we're going to meet mom in the fourth one. And so I want to make sure that that doesn't feel like it's coming out of nowhere. And then there's like all kinds of like some of these characters are holding major secrets that will only be revealed if I get like books 5, 6, 7. So go
Just Easter egg throughout the whole thing.
I mean, they're like almost preliminary Easter eggs. They're not Easter eggs, they're just they're laying groundwork. But yeah, no, I mean, oh my god. I mean, you don't even know the backstory of your favorite character, Kristen. You think you know, but you do not know his backstory.
Got the cameras, let's go.
Different gene folder in like
I mean,
an LZ folder and like a folder for everybody.
it's not a folder.
What is it? What's
It's
it for?
a document. It's a document with all my notes
All
about
the
Gene
pictures.
and like some concerns about the timeline that I still have to figure out. But like exactly what went down, exactly.
Things went down.
Yeah.
The last page of the notes is just like Gene did it.
Gene's been the killer the whole time.
The killer's inside the room.
No. I'm not gonna make Gene a killer, probably.
Like, at least cross-civilization.
Yeah,
Scratch that.
That's an interesting idea, though. What if he's put in a situation where he has to kill someone and he like gets really sad about it? That'd be interesting. I was just gonna kill him before
And then
Chris did, but I like this thing. I'm gonna break him instead. Thank you.
I just wanted you to have some nice snuggles and smooches.
Oh yeah, that could be fun.
Somebody ask the next question. What else can you tell us about King's Legacy?
King's Legacy is about so if the first one was Indiana Jones, I did lean a little more Da Vinci Code of King's Legacy in that he's going to multiple countries and he is looking for the lyre that Jonathan gave King David. And if you are, you look at your queer interpretations of the Bible, which is to say accurate ones, Jonathan and David were lovers. And this book is sort of about that and about the way, and it's about how you sell your queerness or what it's like to be queer when that queerness is something that you are forced to market. Because the show has become more popular and there's a new network with the new producer and she has thoughts. And she also doesn't love the idea of alienating Catholics or Christians. So yeah, there's that sort of push and pull too. And then there's the usual sort of like adventure-y, riddle-y like stuff, and they're going to Venice and Rome and what else do they go? Paris and a fictional island based off that French island that I don't remember the name of, where it's like a fort castle town, and when the tide is in, it's essentially an island, and when the tide is out, like you could walk to it.
Michael.
What?
Michael.
Yes, Saint Michel or Saint
Saint
Michael,
Michel,
something like that. Yeah. So in this case, it's like Saint David or whatever. So yeah, those are the four main locales.
do you have any, are there any parallels between Tennessee's sort of experience marketing experience and did anything personal come in? Are there parallels with that for you at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna elaborate.
Cool.
You'll be able to read between the lines when you see it.
Knowing you, knowing Tennessee.
Any other questions?
All that remains for me to do is to remind you that you are in an independent bookstore that has copies of both Lavender House and The Bell in the Fog, Lion's Legacy, probably some other stuff too.
And the book needs to do well if you want book 5, so you learn Jean's backstory. So, you know, buy like 40, 50 copies
Just think of me and buy the book.
for her mental health.
For me, I need to know what happened to Jean. Well, all that remains then is for me to say thank you so much for coming and to ask everybody to thank Lev as well.